For me, my ultimate identity is that I'm Muslim. Being Muslim supersedes every other identity that I have, including being a black man, being someone who is of African descent, being someone who's from Ghana, being someone who was raised in Toronto. So all of these identities are part and parcel of who I am, but at the end of the day, if my superseding identity is that I'm Muslim. After that, I would say that I'm black. The reason I would define myself in that way is because I see being black, particularly in the North American context, as a sort of unifying political identity for the black community in North America. It's to use the term and to identify yourself as being black in North American context means that you're identifying, in my opinion, with a global understanding of the struggle of people of African descent throughout the centuries to claim their identity, to assert themselves in the way that they want to define themselves, vis-a-vis the reality of white supremacy throughout the world. So I think it's a unifying term, although it encompasses many different ethnicities. I think it's a useful term, and I think it's a political term that brings together and weaves together the different narratives that unite people of African descent, whether that be on the African continent or people from North America, or people essentially who are part of the African diaspora.
I would define myself as a Muslim first, because of the fact that my parents were converts. And so, my mom was, born in Jamaica, but she was pretty much raised in Canada. And then my father is Afro-American, So when they converted, they kind of took on Islam as obviously a way of life. So it became, being born into that family, it became being a Muslim is what we identified with first. But just being we had gone overseas and then we came back, and I was here since I was 13. So just being here since I was 13, at the time there weren't a lot of Muslims from other parts of the world besides South Asia, and the Arab countries. So for me, I was put in a category as being just a Muslim. Like I didn't really fit in so much with the black community because I was a hijabi, like I wore a hijab. So it was that struggle of trying to identify with my quote unquote blackness, and then going into the Muslim community and kind of just being kind of like on the outside sort of, because I didn't fit into any of the other communities.
As a convert, you sort of like just see Islam and being Muslim, and that's your identity culturally as well. And that's very problematic because, what type of food do I eat, what type of clothing do I wear, what's my culture, what's my background. And I think, after years you get to understand that you need an identity, and you need to root yourself in order to move forward, right? And to know what's your purpose as a Muslim. So that's very important. But prior to Islam, I had a very, very difficult time to really, I was very limited in the sense that, it was all white schools and, French as well, and it was very difficult. So bringing this into Islam at the beginning, I was still in a search of who I was, or how should I identify myself with. And you have the Somalis, and you have anybody from the African continent, where you sort of like go towards and say, okay, look, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that. But at a certain point, you're like, it's still not it, So you have to go back without stripping Islam, away, and sort of pick and choose what's good from your background, and create this new identity, right? This Muslim Afro-Caribbean identity, like I was saying, because, you know, if I had other Muslim Haitians, for example, that I can look at, or I can go to and sit with them or whatever, it'll be much easier. But when you don't, you sort of like, you have to create this new identity that, you know, is what it is now.